Hi everyone, welcome to another new series of videos. These are all going to be very simple, soft-spoken videos where I'm just talking. I had a couple requests for videos like those recently. Just simple, conversational videos. And I had one request that helped inspire the series, which is going to be all about Buffy, the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, I was requested, I swear, but although there are certain videos that I have like a dozen requests for, with this one it just took the one request because I do not need any convincing to talk about Buffy. So there are going to be at least 7 episodes because I will be definitely creating at least one video per season. But honestly, my rambling gets out of hand when I'm talking about something I'm not super into. So I can only imagine what it's going to be like in this case. Okay, couple disclaimers. First, about the video. I am taking a chance filming in the daytime. Quite a chance because just like half an hour ago, the grandkids at the neighbor's place were outside playing with a ball, being very loud. But one of them got hurt and was crying, so I guess they went inside, but they might show back up. And also, there have been some very rumbly skies. There's no storm predicted, there's no rain predicted, but there have been some rumbles. So, and then some disclaimers about the series. Obviously, these videos are going to be riddled with spoilers. Although, can you even call it spoilers if it's regarding a show that ended 15 years ago? But still, if you are still watching the series, if you are intending to watch the series, and you don't want to know about major plot points, these videos are not for you. You can come back to them after you've seen the show, perhaps. And then, second, series-specific disclaimer. I'm going to be talking talking about Buffy. It's my favorite show, has always been my favorite show, and I'm very passionate and opinionated about it. And I'm going to be sharing my opinions, but they are just that, opinions, my opinions. So even if I might be like stating them as fact, just in the way that I talk, they're still just my opinions. I know that, and you should know that. You are free to disagree, and I apologize in advance if I insult a character you like, or drag an episode you like, or anything like that. They're just my opinions, and yeah, they're subjective. So okay, so before we get started, you can't even see it, but I debated having a shower and changing out of my pajamas before filming this, but I was afraid that would cost me the energy I need to film this, so I didn't. And then I realized that my pajamas are actually on topic. I've got a little vampire bat here. A little vampire creature with fangs. And it says, maybe don't eat you. Maybe don't eat you. I think it's really cute. So, yeah, but you can't even see it, so mainly looking disheveled over here, but whatever. So, I'm going to be starting with season 1 today. I have like a vague format in my head for these videos. I'm going to try to always first describe the main storyline of the season, just kind of like the general story, general plot of the season. And then kind of zoom in on the characters. Today that will be introducing the characters, and in other seasons that will be more focused on character development. And then I will be finishing with some favorite episodes and talking about the episodes, or some favorite moments, perhaps. Okay. So to help me, I have these 2 pages, and they list all of the episode titles. Now, I've mentioned before that I know them all by heart. All 144 episode titles I know fully by heart. But just for convenience and to have a visual, I'm going to have this nearby. This is an overview that I made a long time ago because the DVDs they don't list which episode is on which DVD. I think they're gonna come back out. Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna explain this paper. No, I'm not even gonna explain the paper. I'm gonna come back to you later. We're back. Though it's not that much later, so still gambling. Okay, so I was saying I made this little overview a long time ago because the DVDs that I have don't include a booklet or an overview of which episodes are on which discs. And what I do most often is I don't necessarily rewatch the entire series, but I rewatch particular episodes when I want to. So I needed an easy way to find the right episode. And this was before smartphones and such. So, at the time it would take 15 minutes for my PC to even start up. And then it's still a question of would the internet work? So, it was easier to have it on paper. So what you see is you have all of the seasons. There's 2 pages. So every season with the episodes of that season. And then behind every episode there's a number. And that number indicates on which disc of the DVD box I can find that episode. So if, for example, I were to be rewatching Doppelgangland, I would go to season 3, disc 5. Or if I were to be rewatching Pangs, I would go to season 4, disc 2. So, a little bit of rumbly skies. I think this is just a plane passing behind the clouds, but not the stormy rumbles we had earlier. So that's what the numbers mean. That's why I have these papers. So I'll just have this nearby so I can use it mainly to help with the retelling of the plot of the season, to have that chronology right. So those of you who are on my Instagram, and I think I mentioned this in my last Buffy video with the merchandise, I recently rewatched the whole series. I don't know, I don't have a count of how many times I've seen the whole series, because, like I said, I so often watch singular episodes that it just gets jumbled in my head. To me, it seems like I'm always watching Buffy. So I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen it, but a lot. However, that does mean that certain seasons I've seen a lot more than others, and certain episodes I've seen a lot more than others. So I could still get things wrong on the seasons that I haven't watched that much. Or I could just misremember things. That's entirely possible. I'm not an expert, so forgive me if I say something incorrect. Okay, so my DVDs look like this. So nothing fancy. And except for season 4. Season 4 is in like a special fancy box. That's the first one I bought, actually. So this is season 1. Season 1 is a shorter episode. It has only 12 episodes. It's a shorter season. It has only 12 episodes. And so this is Buffy. Okay. I'm going to start with the main plot of season 1 and talk about the characters a little bit. So season 1 starts with an episode called Welcome to the Hellmouth. And it immediately starts with this great scene where we see this young, innocent-looking blonde girl with a guy, kind of bad boy type, and she's scared. So you immediately have that classic start of the scared blonde girl in a horror movie, and then very quickly the story turns on you, and it turns out that the innocent looking girl is the monster. So the first person we meet is actually Darla. She's a vampire. She has a little bit of a role in season 1, and she goes on to be more important in the show Angel as well. So she is a vampire, and that first scene immediately just lovely. Especially because, Whedon always said that Buffy came from the inspiration of him wanting to just completely turn around that quintessential horror tale of the young, innocent, pretty girl who is just terrified all the time, and then she dies. He wanted to kind of flip the script on that one. So that's the first scene. And in this first episode, Welcome to the Hellmouth, we meet Buffy, who is the Slayer, and she burned down the gym in her old school. So she got kicked out, and her mother, Joyce, in one of the episodes in season 1 says that they ended up at Sunnydale High because because that's one of the only good schools that would still take her. So that's kind of the normal explanation of why she moved from LA to Sunnydale. But as we find out in this first episode, the Sunnydale High School is actually located on a hellmouth, which is sort of like a door to a hell dimension. And for that reason, the whole town draws in a lot of, demonic and supernatural activity. So the first episode is just Buffy coming into town, meeting all of her friends, Willow, Xander, meeting Cordelia, meeting Giles, and Angel as well. I'll be getting into the characters a little bit later, but I want to focus on the storyline first, or it's all going to get jumbled. So, she learns that even though she was kind of looking to retire from slaying, that will not be possible, and that the school, and this town really needs her help. And it needs it immediately, since she learns that very soon the harvest is going to occur. Because in season 1, the big bad is called the Master. So, like the main villain in each season that Buffy has to defeat is referred to as the big bad. And in season 1, that's the Master. It's this really old vampire, very old, powerful vampire. And sometime earlier, he tried to open the hellmouth, but this went wrong, and he got himself trapped in like a mystical prison instead. And so his followers, including Darla and Luke and others, are working to free him from this mystical prison. And the way that is supposed to happen is through the harvest. And the harvest is also the name of the second episode. And what the harvest is one of his vampires is made a vessel and is supposed to feed on as many people as possible. And in being the Master's vessel, this will empower the master and set him free. So Luke is the vessel, and he is meant to feed on as many people as possible. But thankfully, Buffy manages to stop him before the Master is set free. Now, for the rest of the season, we regularly look in with the Master, but he is not like part of the main storyline until the end of the season. So, we look into him. There's a bit of a storyline with the 3 who he sends to kill Buffy. There's this kid called the Anointed One who is vital in freeing him in the end for some reason. But not a lot happens in terms of like this main storyline for many of the following episodes. You could say that a lot of these episodes are filler episodes. A filler episode is one that doesn't necessarily advance the main plot, but it just kind of fills out your season, often provides some comic relief or just a break for the writers or the actors or whatever. It's a filler episode. But in the first season, these episodes are still quite important to kind of flesh out the characters, get to know everyone, start to bond with them, set the scene and everything. So, they have their use. But as far as filler episodes go, the season 1 ones aren't the best. I really do enjoy myself a good filler episode. Like, season 4 has some great ones, but the season 1 ones are not it. But I'll come back to that later on. So not much happens in terms of the main plot. An important episode, sort of midway season 1, is Angel, in which that Buffy learns that the mysterious stranger who's been helping her is actually a vampire himself. However, he is a vampire with a soul. So, all vampires are soulless, but he was cursed. I'll just use the term used in the show, I guess, by a clan because he killed one of their own. So he's cursed with a soul. And that did not immediately turn him into a good guy or anything. He just lived in filth and lived off rats for 80 years. But we learned that later on. But he was approached by this mysterious demon called Whistler, who showed him Buffy in LA. And that's kind of when he joined the good side. But so Buffy learns that he's a vampire. There's, first this whole situation of, do we kill him? Do we not? Is he good? Is he bad? And then there's this moment where it appears that he fed off of her mother. So, looking a little dicey for Angel for a while, but it all works out in the end. So, and then, more filler episodes until we get to the end, where the master, where Giles, who is Buffy's watcher, he learns of a prophecy that basically says that she will fight the master and she will die. And at first she doesn't want to go, but then vampires kill off a whole room full of students at the school, and she's motivated to try to fight him anyway. So she goes, and spoiler alert, she dies. The master feeds off of her and then drops her in a pool of shallow water. She ends up drowning. And the master is freed. It ends up being her blood that frees him. So he is freed and the hell mouth starts to open, revealing a tentacled monster. This show was very low budget for a very long time, so that kind of helps you remember that it's not actually about the monsters, it's not actually about the horror. They're just like a vessel to tell tales with, but it's not actually supposed to be scary or look realistic, because it doesn't. So the master is freed, Hellmouth starts to open, Buffy is dead. In come Sandra and Angel, and they find her, and Sandra performs CPR and manages to bring her back because she just recently drowned. So she comes back from the dead, and they make their way to the high school. Buffy and the master fight on the roof, and she throws him through the roof. He falls on a big stake, and he is bones. He doesn't turn to dust because he is so old and powerful. He doesn't turn to dust like the other vampires on the show do, but his bones remain there. And that's season 1. It ends with this great scene where Buffy, Willow, and Xander and Giles are kind of discussing what to do post-apocalypse, and Buffy's like, I could still try to get kicked out of school, and they're kind of joking around. And Giles turns away and he said, "The earth is doomed." And that ties into Giles's last lines in, maybe not last lines. I suddenly don't remember. Yeah, I think he says it in the school before the battle. But anyway, that scene is repeated in the last episode of season 7. So I like that. I like when things tie together like that. So that's kind of the series. I'm going to put that down because my arm is getting tired. Okay, so I've mentioned a bunch of characters at this point. So I'm gonna go into them a little bit, just introduce you to them. So obviously we have Buffy, who is the main character, the heroine, I like Buffy. There's a time that I didn't like Buffy as much as now, but as I got older, I started liking her more and more. So we've got Buffy, and in this first season, she is presented as kind of bubbly, and energetic and fun and sparkling. And we see a hint of the seriousness that she will develop in the last episode when she learns about the prophecy that she is going to die. So we see that seed planted, but in the first episode she is still mainly just like bubbly and fun. Like you would have a really good time comparing her outfits in season 1 to her outfits in season 7. There's, a big change. Hairstyles as well. That changes a lot too. You really have like this sunny valley girl, light blonde, bouncy, voluminous hair with sparkly, colorful outfits, often very short skirts, strappy tops, and then towards the end, her hair is darker, often tied back. Almost always wears pants or long skirts, covered clothes. So, there's like a big contrast there. But in the beginning, she is light and fun and resourceful. She's still very clearly learning. She's not like a super accomplished slayer. She's not yet on top of her game in terms of physical strength or anything. But she is resourceful. She doesn't give up. She never stops trying, even when she's cornered into really bad situations, and she will do anything to save others and her friends. So that's Buffy. The second person we meet in the series is Xander. Actually, Xander and Jesse. Unfortunately, Jesse dies quite quickly, which is a shame because I love the actor Eric Balfour. But so we meet Xander, and Xander is kind of like your average teenage boy. He is far from popular, but he's also not like presented as an uber geek or anything. He's not like the chum in the water that's just there for everyone to pick on, based on American high schools. Like, high school dynamics here are not like that at all, thank God. But so he's just kind of average, kind of normal. And that's kind of like his character trait, is being not special, pretty much. So in this first season, he is very focused on Buffy. He is obsessed with her, pretty much. So he wants her, and that's kind of like his persona. I don't know. So I do not like Xander. I don't. I hate the guy. It is hard to tell when it happens. What was it for me that made me hate the guy? But I do. And I'm kind of conflicted in trying to remind myself, on one hand, that he is a hormonal teenager, and that's what hormonal teenagers do, and on the other hand, not wanting to make excuses for a boy that's just constantly sexualizing his supposed friend, and getting angry at her because she doesn't reciprocate his feelings, yet at the same time doing the exact same thing to his best friend who is in love with him, Willow. So yeah, I'm torn between trying to make sense of the behavior and, hating the guy. And so, Whedon has always said that he based Xander on himself in high school. And we know what came from that, so I feel like I'm justified in hating the guy. Sorry if you like him, but I don't. He has no redeeming qualities in my eyes. So, then we have Willow. We meet Willow. Willow is, in this first season, we meet her as a very shy, sweet girl, and very much a geek, but very much okay with that, leaning into that. She is very smart, very tech savvy. She is a capable hacker, and as such she becomes a very valuable part of the Scooby Gang, which is what Buffy and her her crew refer to themselves as. So yeah, she is very much in love with Xander, but doesn't really make that known or do anything about it. Her wardrobe is a disaster. But that kind of stays true throughout the series. So even though she goes through some changes style-wise, it stays pretty bad. But yeah, that's how we meet Willow. Willow is by far the most interesting character. She goes through the most interesting and great big changes throughout the show. Willow's character evolution is just, character development is just, it's a beautiful thing to behold. It's definitely one of my favorite parts of the show. So then we meet Cordelia. And Cordelia starts off as your typical vapid, popular, you know, queen C type of girl. And so at first she really wants to welcome Buffy into her flock of sheep, seeing that Buffy is beautiful. She's from LA. She has, you know, on the surface everything that it takes to be popular, so she wants to welcome her. She gives her this funny little questionnaire, which is just like a little time capsule on its own, that questionnaire. It's lovely. Which Buffy passes, but it's clear that Buffy has no desire to be part of the popular crowd, and Buffy immediately reaches out to Willow, and thereby kind of showing that she's not going to be following Cordelia's rules. And then quite quickly there is a run-in which makes Buffy a freak, and so Cordelia distances herself from her. So Cordelia as a character goes through almost as many changes as Willow, but many of these changes occur on the show Angel. However, we do see her develop into like a more well-rounded character in Buffy already. So, but in this first season, mainly mean. And then we meet Giles. Giles is Buffy's watcher, which is like a mentor for the Slayer. They help her train both physically, intellectually, spiritually, in every way. They, you know, tell her what to do, where to go, they do research, yeah. But basically he becomes a very strong father figure for Buffy as well. His parents are divorced, and her father isn't around much. Giles is very British, very stiff upper lip sort of character, but we learn that behind that exterior definitely are some deeper waters and an interesting backstory, but we learn that later on. But yeah, he really loves Buffy, and it's clear that he wants to do everything he can to help her, starting right off the bat, where in Prophecy Girl he wants to go to fight the Master instead of her, so that she doesn't risk dying. So, and he gets knocked out a lot. So that's Giles. And then the last main character we meet in season 1 is Angel. Angel, who I mentioned, is a vampire with a soul, and he's also Buffy's first and main love interest, which is kind of sketchy because he is 240 years old and Buffy is 16. So, sketchy. But, you know, it is what it is. can't think about it too much. Let's just keep it at that. I can't think about it too much. In this first season, I think Angel is still very attractive, which is so interesting to me because, like, by the second season, that's just gone for me. So I don't know what happens between the first and the second season where I just lose it. I don't know. So Angel is introduced as just like a tall, dark, mysterious stranger. In the beginning, he's kind of snarky. You know, he's got a little edge, and he sort of loses that, I guess, as he falls for Buffy, I guess, but it's a shame because I liked that snarkiness. But so yeah, just tall, mysterious, stranger, quite monosyllabic, brooding. Not much in the way of facial expressions. So, I don't know, they don't do all that much to flesh out his character yet, in my opinion. But it's clear that he wants to help Buffy. He even dusts his sire. Darla is the one that turned him into a vampire, so that's his sire. And he kills her, which is a very big deal. So, yeah. He's a good guy. Then there's like a couple characters we meet, but I'm not gonna really go into them. Most importantly being Jenny Calendar. Jenny Calendar is the computer science teacher. She self-identifies as a techno-pagan, so she is aware of all of the goblins and ghouls in the world. But so, yeah, computer science teacher. She's sort of, she's sort of meant to be a love interest for Giles, but she has a more important storyline that will emerge in season 2. And then we have Buffy's mother, Joyce. She's an art dealer. She's a mom, she wants to be involved, but she really doesn't know what to do about Buffy. But yeah, she's, we don't learn that much about her in the first season yet. Then there's Harmony Kendall. She is one of Cordelia's sheep, and she will have just a small part in the first 2 seasons as, girl in school. But in the first 3 seasons. But she makes an amusing reappearance in season 4, so that's why I'm mentioning her now, Harmony. I mentioned Jesse briefly. Jesse was Sandra's best friend who dies. He gets turned into a vampire and Sandra has to stake him. And that's kind of used as the reason why Sandra is so very much against vampires, why he hates them so much. Like, he hates them more than the vampire slayer hates them. And, that little plot point of him losing his best friend kind of is supposed to explain all that. But yeah, I think in terms of characters, that's mainly it. There's a principal in the beginning, Principal Flutie. Unfortunately, he gets eaten. And then there's a new principal, Principal Snyder, and he's going to be around for a while. And he's unpleasant. He's very unpleasant. So, in terms of episodes, I do not have any favorite episodes from season 1. I never watch season 1 unless I'm doing a full rewatch. And even then, to be 100% honest, I often skip season 1. And if I'm completely honest, I binged season 1 yesterday so I could make this series as accurately as I could, because I skipped season 1 during my rewatch and it had been a while since I saw it. So, yeah, I don't have any favorite episodes, but what I do want to talk about a couple episodes, because something that drew me into the series from the beginning was, the fact that this is not a horror show. It is a show that uses horror to tell its stories. And many episodes are kind of like parables. They use a supernatural plot device as a metaphor to tell a quintessentially modern tale, often, or not necessarily even modern, but like a teen lesson or something. And so there's a couple really good examples of that in season 1. So even though they're not necessarily favorite episodes of mine, I still really like how they handled the subject. For example, in Witch, the 3rd episode, The Witch, we see a mother who is a witch, and she was like a cheerleading champion in her youth. And she uses witchcraft to body swap with her daughter because she is wasting her youth. And so she takes her youth and she body swaps with her. And so that is very obviously the tale of parents kind of hijacking their child's choices to live vicariously through them, be it academically or athletically or in terms of relationships or beauty or whatever. Just that problem of parents trying to live your life. So that's quite well done. We have the episode The Pack, and I have a really hard time watching that episode. Really hard time. Because I hate Xander when he's normal. And in this episode, Xander and a group of school bullies get possessed by hyena spirits, and it turns them very mean and very bloodthirsty. And it just turns, in my opinion, it turns Xander into the asshole he would be if he could. So I have a very hard time watching that episode, but it's a very good metaphor for pack mentality. You know, how we do terrible things when we are in a group and we're feeling powerful. How they prey on the weak and yeah. So, another good example of that. And then I, Robot You, Jane. So this is actually rated as the lowest rated episode of season 1, which in a way I get and in a way I disagree with. Again, so what happens is a centuries-old demon is trapped in a book to, you know, control him and get him, you know, off of the planet. Is trapped in a book. And Jenny Calendar wants to digitalize the school system and the library, so all the books get scanned. And Willow scans in this book, freeing the demon onto the internet. And so the demon starts chatting to students and using them to, you know, enact his evil plans. So obviously what we have here is the whole stranger danger thing online, you know, because Willow starts talking to this guy and she falls in love and she's talking about meeting and all that. Meanwhile, he is a hundreds of years old demon that wants to do evil things. So again, quite clear what that is alluding to. And then lastly, we have Out of Mind, Out of Sight, which features a girl who is ignored and ignored and ignored and ignored by everyone, by her classmates and faculty, and so much so that she turns invisible. She literally disappears. And she uses this newfound ability to harass, torture, and does she kill someone? I don't. Does anyone actually die? Wait. He gets beat up, choked, pushed down the stairs. I don't think anyone actually dies. But so she uses the ability to bully and hurt, physically hurt her old bullies. So in that you see the situation of having a kid or high school student being bullied and pushed so far that eventually they snap and turn on their bullies and the teachers that hurt them. So yeah, there's no like standout episodes for me, no favorite episodes, nothing that I rewatch, but I still think that a lot of those episodes do kind of show, you know, what you're in for with this series, which is a lot more than meets the eye, which is a lot more than a horror show, and also a lot more than like a teen drama or something. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about season 1. I hope you liked it. Feel free to comment anything, and I will see you in season 2. Very curious to find out how long this video is, because this was a short season and a season I don't like all that much. But I did need to, like, lay a lot of groundwork and introduce characters. But I don't know. We'll see. This is probably going to get wildly out of hand. Okay. But someone requested it, so I'm not just doing this because I want to. Okay. Bye. See you soon.